Hello, Lulac familia, friends and supporters of Lulac. Proud to be with today a panel of the past Lulac national presidents. As you know, Lulac was founded in 1929 and is the oldest Latino civil rights organization in the country, and one of the largest with a rich history of people that have been fighting and for the causes that are important to our heart. People ask a lot of times, well, what makes somebody join Lulac? How has Lulac been able to survive all these years while all these other organizations kind of come and go? Well, it's about people. It's about raza in barrios and in colonias and in small towns and in urban cities who just want to make a difference for Jose and Maria. And they've been trying to do that since 1929 when they got together in Corpus Christi to create the League of United Latin American Citizens, to see what they could do to deal with the segregation, the racism, the attempts to create Latinos as second-class citizens. And Lulac has been fighting since then until today, as we joined the struggles against voter suppression, the issues of the impact of COVID on our communities, how to improve the education for our children and our college students to be, what we can do for our military that are serving in our armed forces to protect the young men and women who serve and to make sure that they get the promotional opportunities and educational opportunities in the military. A large segment of our LULAC members are veterans. A large segment are law enforcement. Even Hector Flores, believe it or not, was a former police officer. And that's part of LULAC. We have a lot of people from all levels, from all professions, as well as just regular working class men and women. And that is what makes LULAC unique and different. So I'd like to go ahead and start with our Madam President Rosa Rosales. Can you tell us why you joined LULAC? How did you get involved? What made you want to put on that LULAC pin?
Well, I had just come back from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I was full of energy. At that time, the custodians had gone out on strike, and so had the teaching assistants had gone out on strike, and there we were as students with a picket sign supporting them. So when I get back home, I was looking for something of action. I wanted to make a difference in my community, and I wanted to reach out to the grassroots. So that when I come back with all this energy in me, because I used to be very timid and shy, but once I went to the University of Michigan, come back, it opened a whole new world for me. So I come back, and Angie Garcia was the lady that told me, join Lulac. And at first, I'll be very honest, I said, Lulac? Up there in Michigan, we didn't hear much about Lulac, and I want something more of an action organization. And she said, Lulac is what you make of it. And she was so right. I joined Lulac because of Angie Garcia and wanted to make a difference in my community. We started in District 15. We started addressing the issues that affected everyday lives of the poor people, of the working class people. And I enjoyed that. We passed all kinds of resolutions. And to me, LULAC is so important to the community because as we are volunteers, we advocate for the Latino community and all communities, and ask that we stand up and fight for the issues.
And President Rosales, what year was that?
I believe I came back in 1978. Okay. And I think by the next year, within the latter part of 79, I believe, within a year, I joined LULAC.
Well, I saw Angie Garcia still kicking and dancing at the Texas LULAC convention in Austin last week. So both of y'all have been around a long time.
Angie Garcia is just a powerful woman that has so much energy that I hope that I will continue the type of energy she has, because she is so enthused. She's always calling about the issues, and that's what's important. LULAC addresses community issues. They call us, we're not a service organization, we're volunteers. But those that know how to represent in other areas, we do that as a volunteer. And so that's so important to me.
President Flores, what about you? Tell us why did you join LULAC? Tell me.
Well, let me just say, first of all, I want you to know that I graduated with Dr. Rudy Rosales in 1971. And even then, he was very rebellious with our professors and everybody out of the political science department. So it was already in their blood, regardless. Rosa and Rudy were going to make noises. So I just wanted to put that because I knew them before when we both graduated from college. But let me just say that, you know, my life has taken real different turns from being a migrant worker with my grandparents who raised me. But I also played a very important role in that I was one of the first 3 kids to go to school with Anglos. And the reason that is because a guy by the name of Gus Garcia came to our community. He actually created a chapter in Dili, in Pearsall, and Cotula. And the whole aspect of that was that they wanted to make sure that we had access to the better schools, the better curriculums, and the better teachers. So I benefited from that. We didn't know whether they were going to accept us or not, but they did accept us. They didn't have to sue the city or the school district or anybody. We were the majority even then, like 70% to 30%. So I always felt like, how did this come about? And as my years in San Antonio, because I went to school at South San too, among many places along the migrant trail, believe it or not, I went to school in Mount Summit, Indiana. We worked up in Michigan, up in Old Mission. And I also wound up in Chicago, went to school in Chicago. And when my grandparents went to Plainview, Texas, I went and I went to school. They were the ones working. And I was always going to school because you had to go to school when school started in September. But nevertheless, I wound up in San Antonio. I didn't participate in LULAC. I was busy getting my education, and with little kids, you don't have time for a lot of things. But my cousins did benefit from LULAC scholarships. When I got a job with the Department of Justice and moved to Dallas, I was here on Father's Day in 1973. And immediately after that, in July, Santo Rodriguez was assassinated in a patrol car. I knew a little bit about police work because I had worked as a policeman 7 years to pay for my education at St. Mary's University. One thing that bothered me a lot was that Santo's mother, who was at the penitentiary at the time, and his adoptive grandpa, everybody was making a lot of, noise about his death, but there was not one single lawyer that took up the case. And we were sitting in a meeting at the federal building, and we said, hey, nothing's happening here. What can we do? So we all pitched money. And I knew Ruben Sandoval, who had graduated from St. Mary's University in San Antonio, who was also the kind of person that there were no obstacles on who he could defend or sue. So I called him up, and he actually took the case. And he actually co-prosecuted Daryl Kane. But one thing that really cemented my wanting to be part of LULAC is I saw the kind of work they did with scholarships here. My boss was from Laredo. Robert Ornelas was my other mentor, who was from Laredo. This is Dan Galvan. And another guy by the name of Leo Vidauri and Leonard Chaides. Those 4 guys mentored me. They were all of them from Laredo. And Laredo at one time had the largest LULAC chapter. And basically, they started supporting me for different things. So they thought I was from Laredo and I'm from Dilley, Texas, right? So I always respect what they have done with the LULAC organization. Nevertheless, being here at Santo Rodriguez and going through that traumatic change that mobilized our community, LULAC also played a vital role in that. But one day, I went with Robert Ornelas and Dan Galvan to a state board meeting in Waco. And we went in a government car because I worked for the Department of Justice and then I worked for the Office for Civil Rights, the Department of Education. And when we were there, an issue came up. And the issue was that there were not enough Spanish-speaking doctors in Texas. And what were we going to do to pressure the state of Texas and the medical schools to get more Hispanics and or Spanish-speaking doctors into the industry? Well, my brother-in-law was in medical school at the same time. So I reasoned that I ought to do a resolution. Why couldn't the people that were going to like medical schools elsewhere not be able to transfer to the medical schools in Texas is the way I saw it. Like, for example, if you went to a law school in San Antonio or Houston or wherever, you could actually transfer to another law school. So I did this resolution. I didn't know there was a state representative there. And guess what? This guy from Waco, Mr. Manuel Gonzalez was the president at the time from Waco. He took my resolution and created a state law called the Pathway Bill. From that point on, I was hooked. I said, my goodness, these guys do pay attention to LULAC. It's going to help people because it's going to help my community. And of course, here, being involved in desegregation, to desegregate the public schools. Several of us, but in particular, Rene Martinez, myself, Frank Hernandez, and others played a very, very vital role in changing the makeup of the school system. It was not easy to desegregate the public schools because of the political power, this was just basically Dixie, the southern bastion of political power right here in Dallas. Where the
what year did you join? What year was that? Did you first join?
1973, 49 years ago.
All right. So as you can tell, we all have a story. My backstory is, as to why I joined Lulac, because I've been seeing discrimination and racism all my life. I was born in Midland, Texas, but grew up in a little town called Porvenir, Texas, which in 1918 was a site of the Porvenir massacre, where 18 Mexican Americans, boys, ages 12 to 80, were massacred by Texas Rangers. My grandmother and my great grandfather are all from there, and we told us those oral histories. They didn't teach you that in school. They teach you about the Alamo and how Mexicans are the bad guys. They didn't teach you about how the Texas Rangers, the Ranches, were really the bad guys. And picking cotton in West Texas and being sprayed by airplanes as you're 10 years old, it leaves an impression. And then growing up, going through, if you may know where Ozona, Texas is, one day my dad, who was illiterate, didn't speak English. We were driving from Van Horn to Del Rio, and we stopped at a gas station in Ozona to get some hamburgers. I'm the oldest of 7, and the gas attendant told my father to look at a sign, and I had to tell him that the sign said, "No Mexicans, no Negroes, no dogs served." They told us to go to the back, and I had to translate that for him. And I remember that very vividly because that sign was up evidently all over Texas at that time period. This is the 1960s. And then flash forward, when I go to law school, college and all that, I became active in the Raza Unida Party, the Brown Berets. I was at the Santos Rodriguez March in downtown Dallas when I was basically in junior high. I still take care of Bessie Rodriguez, his mother, helping her out. I was at Joe Campos Torres protests when Joe Campos Torres, who many of you may not have heard of, was a veteran who was handcuffed, beaten by police officers, and thrown into a Houston bayou and told to swim went back. And the first time I ever got tear gas was there when I was 19 at Moody Park in Houston, Texas. And then flash forward to today, when I graduated from law school, and a guy named Hector Flores recruits me to join Lulac in Dallas, Texas. And I just said, I want to make part of a difference and make a change. So, Rosa, what was the most memorable moment of your presidency as a Lulac president?
I think I had many moments like that, but one of the ones, we were about to lose funding for the LNESC, our scholarship arm of Lulac, and we had to do something to save it. So we started talking to the Hispanic caucus, and lo and behold, we got very good support. And through meeting with the senators and the U.S. Congress, we were able to get funding for LNESC. So that was a great moment for me, because coming in and losing funding, which, by the way, LNEC had most of the funding from the federal government. So it's very important to continue our scholarship arm. And that was a great moment for me.
Hector, what about you?
Well, I've like Rosa said, I had some wonderful times, I think, impacting not only here in Dallas and Texas, but at the national level. The most important one, I think, is when Sensenbrenner from Wisconsin came up with this bill to criminalize all undocumented people in our country. I think it stirred the passions of advocacy, not only of Lulac, but people throughout the country. We all had we had a meeting with both John McCain and Ted Kennedy. And the bill was really having great traction in what we see now with SB 4 and other things of that nature, that basically wanted to criminalize all the people that were here. They were here contributing. Many of them were here for 20, 30, 40 years, but hadn't become citizens. And so this was going to criminalize not only them, but their parents and their grandparents. And it was just something that we had to do something. In fact, John McCain ordered us and Ted that we should take to the streets and do something. So, you know, the bus, we got all these organizations throughout the country. We decided there during April, you will recall, we had 128 cities had demonstrations all over across the country during a period of a couple of weeks. The largest one was right here at home in Dallas, Texas, that Domingo, you and I coordinated. And I remember telling you, hey, man, you're going to have to pick up half of the cost for that. You know, we had this humongous scenario where we put the stage that we had. And, you know, Britt came and we had all the staff. We thought, hey, we're going to get 50, 70,000 people. Before we knew it, they shut down the city of Dallas. And thank goodness that they didn't charge us for all the policemen had to go to work, because Domingo's wife was the mayor pro tem, and she talked to the chief about them actually eating the cost because of we had so many. There was not one single incident that anybody went to jail. It was a family affair. I mean, they flooded not only the streets, but at City Hall. It was just something that was just incredible as far as I'm concerned. People coming from all over, from other states. And I think we kind of really made a statement about, and Lulac brought it all together, not only here, but in Chicago and LA, where I went to similar marches, and they also had 400,000. And you know what? We made a great difference, at least with that bill. And, you know, seems like we're back again at that same stage that we got to fight again. The other item that President Rosales and I did not agree on, that I thought was important, because we always wanted to have a Hispanic on the Supreme Court. And George Bush, as you know, actually was a good friend of Lulac, encouraged us and consulted with us on major pieces of legislation, on things that the government was doing, et cetera, et cetera. But he did come to us, and also the Attorney General Gonzalez asked Alberto Gonzalez, and they wanted to put Miguel Estrada into the Supreme Court. We took it to our organization, and we had a vote like 38-2 in favor of it. So we went ahead and supported Miguel Estrada. He didn't make it, but we knew that someday we were going to have a Hispanic, not knowing that, you know, we would have one sooner than we thought. Anyway, those are two things that stick in my mind, besides making some of these corporate donors kick in at the level of $1 million, not at the 50,000 and 75,000 and 100,000, beginning with General Motors and Ford and AT&T and Verizon and on and on. I think these are things we need to continue working on, because right now, because of some of the events in the last couple of years with Black Lives Matter, it appears like Hispanic organizations, civil rights in particular, are just not getting supported by the corporations as they should.
And just as a background on that, you know, this weekend I had the privilege to march with Martin Luther King III and Al Sharpton and President NAACP and various African American leaders on the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And people don't realize that when Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech in 1963, he had 100,000 people there. At our Lulac March on April 9th, 2006, we had 500,000 people there.
Exactly.
5 times bigger. Okay. And so that's pretty memorable in a city that, you know, only has a population of 1.1 million. We were able to turn out 500,000 people. So that was pretty impressive. And like I said, not one arrest, and it went off without a hitch and was on national TV. My favorite moment so far, Lulac, has been when I saw, we were in McAllen, Texas, doing a protest at a children's jail. This is when they were jailing kids. And I remember I saw a prison bus, literally a prison bus with bars on it. And I saw little hands of maybe a 4 or 5-year-old boy on that. And I remember I said, this is just so wrong, that I got in front of the bus. And within minutes, Rosa's sons had joined me, and a lot of other Lulacers joined me.
Rico Alina jumped in.
Rick Lavanino, I mean, within seconds, probably, we had 100 to 200 Lulacers standing in front of that bus with the migra yelling at us to get out of the way, and we were not moving away. And I think that shows the courage and the bravery of our members who were willing to be arrested, who were willing to stand up for children who couldn't have a voice. And that's what I always thought the Lulac mission was. We've been joined now by Belen Robles, our first woman national president from El Paso, Texas. Belen, we started the conversation with why did you join Lulac? Tell us why you joined and got involved.
I probably have been a member of Lulac longer than many of you have been on this earth. I joined Lulac in 1954, and it was very interesting. At that time, the big moneymaker for Lulac members was the Fiesta de las Flores. And my neighbor, and they decorated the booths. And Council 132 would award a money award for the council that decorated the booth best. So my next door neighbor was a member of Council 9, and she invited me to go help make paper flowers because they were going to build a chinampa, and they wanted all sorts of beautiful flowers. So I thought, well, I'll go. And then I learned that the money that they raised at the Fiesta de las Flores and by an enchilada dinner was to give scholarships to the young Latino students. And I thought, that's wonderful. So that was the hook that got me in there. And I'm very proud because Council 9, let me share with you, I don't know how many of you are aware that Council 9 has played a tremendous role in the history of Lulac, especially for women. You know, when Lulac was established, women were not members. But the men soon found out that they needed the support of the women. So they created the auxiliaries. And Council 9 was the auxiliary to Council 8. And we had some tremendous strong women in Council 9. One of them was Esther Machuca. You probably have read about her in the history of Lulac. And she started communicating with the women. And they said, why are we accepting to be just an auxiliary? So in 1937, she got all the women together and they went to the assembly and made a presentation. And in their presentation, they gave the assembly something to think about. And that was either you give us full membership in the organization or we're going to leave and form our own organization. So in 1937, the women of Lulac were given full membership. And then Esther, being the bright woman that she was, the smart woman that she was, she figured, since I have all this beautiful magazine that I created and that I have used to communicate with the women in Lulac, we should use it as a newsletter for all the members. So the Lulac News was born. So I can tell you that, needless to say, I feel very proud of the many good legacies that Council 9, and it has been the Women's Council, or actually it's the Council of Continuous Service with the most years in the organization. And it's still going strong. And I believe we still continue to address the issues of our community. So to tell you the truth, I'm glad that I was able to share some of this information with you.
But then what was the most memorable part or one of the most memorable moments of your presidency as the first Latina president of Lulac?
Well, you know that I became national president at a very challenging time. You know, first of all, I was the first woman. And I used to be employed by US Customs at the bridge. I did not have an office. Lulac did not have an office either, because all the past, my predecessors had been men that had their own offices. So their office became the Lulac office. But Interestingly enough, I can tell you that when I was elected, the corporate sector women and the women that were in Washington, D.C. came together and they said, Belen, if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. So lo and behold, the community relations persons for AT&T came to me and said, you know, you are $178,000 in the hole, because that's how much Lulac owed at that time. Unfortunately, my predecessor had done some things that were not quite right.
I can relate. Go ahead.
Anyway, the bottom line is that she said, you know, we're going to invite corporate to come and help us, but we are going to have to decide what they get from us if they help us. And she said, why don't you tell them that anytime we disagree with them on employment issues or any other type of issue that is not in the best interest of the Latino community, rather than boycott you, we will bring you to the conference table.
Okay, all right.
And so as a result, we formed what is now known as the
Corporate Alliance.
The Corporate Alliance, right. And they were very, very helpful. So, and they still are. So I think that, and you know, just as I came on, we were mentioning Rick Tobalina. And I was going to tell you, I was so fortunate that Lulac had some outstanding leaders that were willing to come and help build up the organization. And as I mentioned, I inherited a $178,000 debt. And do you know that Rick Tobalina said, designate me as your negotiator? I said, well, better than that, I'm going to nominate you as one of my legal advisors. And as a legal advisor, he went out and negotiated where within 3 months, he had erased the debt. So it's amazing, but Lulac leaders recognize that there's times when it's time to follow.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Rick Tobalina. He's also a great past national president. We are unfortunately he passed away last year. I was there at his funeral. I think many of us were there, and his legacy again is important for Lulac. So it's important that I'm glad you brought up his memory.
Domingo, may I interject one thing? And of course, I miss Rick. We were the odd couple. We didn't agree on a lot of stuff. Well, we did a lot of stuff together. But I wanted to compliment Belen because she actually, we lost the office we had in Washington. IRS picked it up, everything we had. When she came on board, she recreated our national office. I remember going to DC and her corporate friends, we got us an office back because how can you go do business in Washington, DC? You don't have a place, you know, that you can call. This is our office. And I have to compliment her for being able to put that together. And it's there today. We wouldn't have had the success we've had, all of us that followed her, if she hadn't basically, you know, created, you know, the formation of Lulac as we know it today. You know, quite an accomplishment, I think.
All right, President Rosales, what advice would you give to some of our new members, our collegiate members, and new members of Lulac based on your experiences?
Advice that I would give to potential new members or new members?
Or new, yeah, the new members are coming in.
The new members, my advice would be Lulac is a family. And, you know, in Lulac, it is not really what Lulac can do for me. It's what you can do for Lulac, because Lulac addresses the issues of the community. So it's so important that when we come into LULAC, that we want to make a difference in the community by helping out, whether it's raising monies for scholarships, whether it's helping the elderly, whatever you do to make a difference in the community is so important. So I would advise those that want to, because we need membership like any other organization, but at the same time, we have to have the type of membership like LULAC's as volunteers to give their time and their money, you know, and their expertise in whatever they can help make a difference in the community. I strongly believe that this organization, this great organization, which I love, is strong because of its membership. It is strong because of the individual councils. They're the blood life of LULAC because those individual councils do so much as volunteers. People think that LULAC pays us, but LULAC does not pay us. We do it out of our heart and commitment to help our people. And like I said, it's not just Latinos. We help everyone, regardless of your race, color, or creed. And that's so important to me to understand the meaning of LULAC is to give and volunteer to make a difference and help out our communities in a much better situation that we are. And right now, LULAC is needed. You know, sometimes they say LULAC, well, what does LULAC does? What do I get? You know what you get? You get a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment that you want to give and make a difference in your community by helping whatever you do as a volunteer. So, but to me, LULAC, you have to have that commitment and mucho corazón para hacer una diferencia en la comunidad, para ayudando a nuestra gente.
Hector, what about you? What advice did you give based on your experience to our current members and new members?
Well, I think we're like the haven for ARP membership. So we need to change that. Unfortunately, most of us we're older. And I think we need to concentrate, bringing in more young blood and passing on the torch. It's not easy to let go of the organization we feel is our own, bottom line. And so we need to think about the mind of the millennial and what they're looking for. They haven't experienced the overt discrimination that many of us that are in this program today have over the years, whether at home, at school, the way they treated us and our parents and others. And they have a different mindset about civil rights than we do. So we got to be looking at what kind of a framework that we're going to do in recruiting young people. One thing that always works for older people, whether it's on the job or what have you, is when they have an issue and how we respond to that issue and how we solve their problems. The other one is how do you work with the minds of the young that don't have the experiences that I'm talking about, you know, of having bad experiences and because of who we are and our last name. And so we need to work with them and use technology that they have embraced technology so well. You know, some of our people that are members right now don't even have they don't have an email address. They can't take a message on the internet. So we need to think about how we're going to transition into this new technological age. I think we need to work real hard at that. I know in the past we were able to bring people in by having all these seminars. Everything now is on the net, and so I think that probably shortens the number of people that get on, particularly the elderly who are not very, I guess, knowledgeable about using technology. But young people, we have to figure out how to crack that. We have to get people that are very knowledgeable about that segment of the population. How do you attract them? What makes them make decisions? You know, I notice that any time that you use your phone, they're tracking your phone as an example. We got to see what reaction do young people get to LULAC, and how do we build our brand into their mind about we are the go-to organization if they want to succeed in life, going to high school, to college, to corporate America, to the federal government. At one time, at LULAC, we would help a lot of people get into these, besides the military, but I'm talking about federal jobs and also state jobs. And I mean, that was a key because, you know, we would be recruiting we actually were like the recruiting arm for a lot of these agencies that were hiring people. But anyway, we got to figure that out. It's not easy. And we need to see how perhaps we could have some type of a retreat that we could involve not only the members that have been here a long time, but also young people to give us ideas what they watch, what would attract them, those kinds of things.
What advice would you give to our current and new members of LULAC based on your experience?
My advice is that the priorities of our community differ even within the same city. We have to understand that particularly if you take a city like El Paso that has a large immigrant population, and this immigrant population brings fabulous values to our communities, but they don't have full knowledge of our educational systems. And research shows that parents really are interested in the education of their children when they're little, first, second, and third grade. And it is at that stage that we, as leaders and as concerned residents, can address these parents and give them an orientation of the educational system. Let them know that if they encourage their children to do well in school, we can guarantee them a scholarship to college. And I say that very proudly because 85% of the students that are attending El Paso Community College, they're all on scholarship. Students that are graduating from early college, high school, we make sure that they have scholarships. But see, these are things that parents don't know. And I can tell you, I have never heard a parent say, I would like my son or daughter to fail. They'll want them to succeed, but oftentimes they don't know how to help. And so we need to tell our leaders to make sure that they get to the grassroots and find what are the priorities to assist our residents to improve their way of life, their economics, their education. And it will take some research, it will take some hard work, but it's very important that we recognize that the young people have great new ideas. And those of us that have been around the block a few times have the benefit of the experience of what it takes to make things happen.
Okay. All right. I'm going to change it up a little bit. Hector, what is your most funny experience as a LULAC president?
What?
Funny, memorable experience as a LULAC president. ¿Qué te hizo rir? Laugh.
Hey, man, I never thought that I would respond to that question. I'm trying to think. One thing, I remember one time I was with a friend. Well, no, it's not appropriate. I'll pass for the time being.
I'm just telling you, I remember when I was with the young adults and they were looking at us like, we don't understand who Little Joe and La Familia are. Who is that? And I thought that was funny. That was strictly a generational thing. Belen.
Yes.
Anything humorous that you remember about your LULAC presidency?
You know, I'll be very truthful with you. My term as national president allowed me to learn that people have so much to offer. Do you know that when I first got elected, I already mentioned I didn't have an office. And although the president of the bank here gave me an office at the bank, as a matter of fact, it was a suite of offices, but I was in El Paso and the halls of power were in Washington, D.C. And I would have to travel. And do you know that there was this gentleman that I knew who was the administrative assistant to the Department of Treasury, and he informed me that there was a program where if you work for the federal government and you had a national position with a nonprofit organization, you could enter into a contract where the government would pay your salary while you perform the duties of that national office. And lo and behold, we entered into a contract where Lulac would provide me with an office, would provide me with means of transportation, and they would cover my salary.
Wow.
It's called an IPA. It's called an IPA.
That was it had been in existence for years and we didn't know about it.
All right. Rosa, how about what do you want to see as your legacy as from your presidency? What is your legacy? Or you would like people to remember?
My legacy is, I really don't think myself as leaving a legacy. I just am very proud to have been a national president. I set my goals to on different offices within LULAC. And I think my legacy would be in that, be known as, I know we say we meet together and everything, but I was known as Boycott Rose, you know. And I remember that in one of our state conventions, the Contract for America, we took a trash can and we burned it. That's what we're talking about the Contract for America. So I would like to see myself as a person that would address the issues, and that everyone in this organization, to me, is important, that every single member has something to contribute. So when we talk about the youth and we talk about the young adults and we talk about our general membership, it is taking all of us to work together. And I am a person that wants inclusion for everyone to have a part within the organization because everyone is important. So my legacy, I guess, would be to have full participation by all our members. And addressing the issues will bring up, a difference. I remember that I went with an interviewed by Lou, what was his name?
Lou Dobbs?
Lou Dobbs, yes, how can I forget? And you talked about a laughable moment. And I remember that there was stuff from Maldives and there was also from other organizations, Jail Farm. And I remember telling them, one of them that I was close to of another organization said, when they give you the mic, do not release it, keep talking. Because once Lou Dobbs had a habit of grabbing the microphone and taking over. So when he gave me the mic, I kept talking and talking and talking. He wanted to shut me up. And I remember the laughable moment to me after the Lou Dobbs show there, that interviewing different Latino organizations. He actually came up to my husband and said to Rosa, says, how do you control a woman like Rosa? And to me, that was a laughable moment because it wasn't a matter of control. It was a matter that I did not let him say the word
Cut you
that
off.
I wanted him to use the undocumented and not the word he was using.
Really?
Illegal. So I said, that's from outer space. So that to me was a very laughable moment. And I'd like to also say, I remember another one when a laughable moment, you might say. In when I was president, I would open my suite for everybody. My suite was always everybody, and we'd have some great times in there. Without mentioning names, there was a person that would impersonate all of us. And those impersonations were so funny, but we all take it as a very happy moment. They were able to laugh at each other and compliment each other and work together. So I think my legacy would be one of inclusion, that it's not one group over another, but that it takes all of us. It takes a community working together to make a difference in our communities.
President Robles,
Yes.
what do you want people to remember about you and your legacy as president of LULAC and what you did during your time?
Well, I would like for my legacy to be the one that brought the outstanding leaders within the organization together to ensure that we were able to meet the challenges of our day. I'm very happy that under my administration, the membership in Puerto Rico grew and grew, and they brought so many benefits to the island. I would like to believe that in my leadership position, I was able to bring women together from all parts of this country in all segments of our business world. And that it demonstrated that women coming together, we could overcome any barrier or obstacle that came our way.
Hector,
Well, I think I excelled in the field of education, and also I guess impacted on some of the congressional laws at the time that were giving us a hard time. I know that I was very actively involved in the Central American Free Trade Agreement that passed by only like a couple of votes. We were able to get people from Texas that saw the benefit of international trade and supporting that. But I think some of these marches and different things that we did during my administration, I guess to give voice to those that don't have any voice. I think that was, hopefully that was one of the things that I did, to be able to channel the needs of our community and be able to get not only corporate America, but also our elected officials throughout not only in Washington, but in the different states that we lobbied hard for. I have to tell you that one of the things that hasn't been mentioned, but one of the boycotts against the shock jock Howard Stern was actually myself, David Cruz, and Ruben Bonilla, where we brought a lot of these corporations to the table and to their knees because they continued to support Howard Stern and his program when he mocked Selena about her abilities as a Tejano singer. And these are things that stay on your mind. I remember also debating people like Lou Dobbs and the other national, I guess, commentators. And even maybe this is a little bit funny, but I was invited by Lou Dobbs personally to go to Cancun, where the three presidents from Mexico, the US, and Canada were meeting for a summit. And when I got to the point of being interviewed, and he welcomed me on, and I spoke to him in Spanish. So he got as red as a beet, because I was talking to him in Spanish and asking him why we were not speaking Spanish in a country where Spanish is basically the language spoken. And I think if anything was funny, I got more reaction from all over after that program. People call me from all over Mexico and the US and other countries, thanking me for putting them on the spot. Anyway, those are some of my thoughts about if I made an impact. I did it not for Hector Flores, basically. I did it for people that are not able to have access to the power that's in our country, elected officials and others, and even corporate America. And so I think in the best traditions of LULAC, I think everybody that's on this program with you, in one way or another, have done exactly that also.
Yeah, I think it's important that LULAC recognizes where we started and what we've done since the 1929 to the Mendez versus Westminster to the school for the 400 to today. Where the fight we had with getting justice for Vanessa Guillen, or for the meatpacking workers, or banning a pesticide for the farm workers in the fields. And probably today filing a lawsuit against the state of Texas to stop a voter suppression bill that just passed, and the governor will probably sign today. But we're ready to file the lawsuit today. And I think that's some of the things we're talking about. We're about to wrap up. So what I'd like to do is give each of the presidents 2 to 3 minutes to give us some concluding remarks, and any inspirational or motivational things you might want to impart to the audience today. So President Robles, I'll start with you. If you can go ahead and give us your closing and concluding remarks and anything you would like to add.
Well, I totally agree that we need to have a greater presence at all levels. And the march is something that brings up, especially now that so many of the states are considering legislation that will have a negative impact on our communities. It is very important that we rise to the occasion of making our voices heard, that such a type of activity will not be tolerated.
Okay. President Rosales.
First, most important, I would like to thank each individual member of LULAC and also their councils for all the work that they've done as volunteers. I want to thank because it is all of us together that has made a difference. Today, we are in very unstable times with COVID-19, with voter suppression. Our civil rights are being threatened. So my message to our LULAC community and to everyone, get involved. You are needed. And like I said before, and I'll repeat it again, every one of you make a difference. It is all of us working together as a community. And don't forget, we need to get out to vote. Elections are coming. Every election, from the school board to the county, to the city council, to state elections, every election, you make a difference. So I would ask all of us, let us work all of us together, because each and every one of us are important to making a difference in the community. So ask that we, first of all, thank you so much, LULACers, and thank you so much, the LULAC councils, for all the work that you do. And let me tell you that there's so much that is not documented. LULAC is known because we have oral history. We need to document, and every council and every member, take a notebook, take some notes, and write down, because sometimes they don't know what is happening at the local community. It all starts at the local, and it is all of us working together that we will continue to make a difference. So get involved. I know you're involved already, but we just have to carry it one more step higher, because we're needed right now more than ever. Our rights are being threatened, especially our voting rights. Our education, our history of our people is being threatened. They don't want us to know the truth about what happened in the Alamo, what happened with the Native Americans, what happened in issues that are very relevant for every one of us to know, and for our children to know the true history, the true American history of minorities in this country. So thank you so much. And it's been a privilege to have served and be a part of LULAC. And for that, I am grateful, because LULAC has made a difference to many of us and will continue to make a difference. Thank you.
Right. President Flores.
Well, gosh, I mean, I think it's probably all been said. And of course, I definitely admire the ladies and my colleagues before me. All their comments, I think, are right on target. We have to be ready for redistricting. That's right around the corner. I think we got to be mindful of that. Again, education is it as far as I'm concerned. We have to make sure that those kids are in school. Right now, a lot of kids do not have access to the internet. Thank goodness, here in Texas in particular, can imagine what's happening in rural areas. In the big cities, at least they're making different programs to be able to give access to those impoverished young people that are in schools, in the public schools. I have a saying that I ascribe to that was given to me by my grandparents, and they would tell me que el que no vive para servir no sirve para vivir. I always remember that. And on another point, that I want to thank everybody that listens to this program and watches this program, because, I guess there's about 150 years of experience amongst us or more. And one word that always stands out for LULAC that we should be proud of, and it's called volunteerism, as was mentioned earlier. Now, we did not invent the word, but we most certainly have given it great value in this country and around the world, to be honest with you, because of the work that we do as volunteers and not get paid. And actually, you have to pay out of your own pocket to do a lot of things. As you well know, Domingo, every time I hit you for money for those kids and for the different programs that we have, and you've been very generous over many years, you and your wife and others. So I thank everybody que ha puesto su granito de arena para ayudar a LULAC, para ayudarle a la gente, no para ayudarnos nosotros. Así que gracias por estar con nosotros.
I want to thank all the presidents. There's a lot of wisdom, a lot of, Sonia Sotomayor said, wise women, Latina women, can change the world. We got several wise Latina women here on this panel, as well as a couple with Hector. And I wish we could have had the other presidents. The Bonilla brothers could not make it with us, but they were invited, for those of you who may be asking. And unfortunately, we did lose our past president, Victor Molina, last year. But the bottom line is this. All of us are involved in LULAC with all these past presidents, trying to make a difference, trying to change the lives of Jose and Maria in whatever way we can. President Robles was there talking about the story of when women were allowed to become full members of LULAC, and when we became the first Latina, and now we have LGBT members who are part of LULAC. LULAC has continued to open up our doors and to be at the forefront of civil rights. That struggle, esa lucha, sigue para adelante. And if those of you who are listening and paying attention, these words and these stories are important. They're part of a legacy that hasn't been told. The stories about, we had at our Texas LULAC convention, the story of a young engineer who was at NASA and brought back Apollo 13, Arturo Campos, who nobody ever heard about, but he was the one that was responsible for that. And when you saw Tom Hanks in Apollo 13, the movie, no Latino was mentioned about doing that. But we honored him and gave him a medal, and now there's a documentary on him. They are putting a statue where Joe Campos Torres was killed in Houston, Texas, to memorize the police brutality that occurred back in that time period. So in my background of Puerto Veneta, Texas, we finally were able to get a historical moniker where the Rangers killed 18 Mexican-American citizens between the ages of 12 and 80 in 1918. So esas historias, as well as the new ones, the positive ones, where somebody is the first one in the family to maybe graduate from college, or the first Latina to be elected mayor of Tucson, Arizona, or the first U.S. senator from California, which LULAC had a hand in with the appointment of Alex Padilla for the U.S. Senate. All of those stories are and things are that LULAC has been working for and continuing to fight for. So seguimos en la lucha hasta la victoria. Gracias a todos los presidentes, y good luck to the next ones. Gracias.